I really struggle to believe that she stays true to a lot of the things she says, considering how so many of her messages contradict one another. I wish you could see it, but there is currently a cat in front of me, in front of the monitor that I'm going to be looking at, and I can't show you because she's lying down and I don't want to disrupt her, but there's a little cat here. We'll actually talk about someone, obviously that's partly why you're here. We talk about Linda's son, and we're using this as a bit of a catalyst for conversation, which I'll kind of explain at the end, but we're going to talk about a recent video of hers which caught my attention. Eating viral foods and doing viral workouts for a week. I've never used TikTok. Is TikTok toxic? But first, don't forget to like and subscribe if you in fact tolerate my face on your YouTube machine. Due to the nature of this video, it's largely going to be talking about body image, potentially even eating disorders and things along those lines, so I feel like it might be necessary to throw out a quick trigger warning just stating that if anything throughout this entire video makes you feel uncomfortable or uneasy, or is potentially problematic for you to listen to, then please don't have any hesitation clicking off the video. Your mental health is certainly not worth sacrificing for the sake of watching one of my videos.
While it is a great high protein snack, if you're craving some real ice cream, please just enjoy your ice cream. You don't need to earn it or make it high protein or eat less later.
That's actually a really valid point. So a lot of people have this idea that when they are potentially dieting or doing something along those lines, that they have to eliminate all foods that they enjoy. I think the first thing to identify is why you're doing what you're doing. Let's assume you're in a deficit, so you're dieting to lose body weight, potentially body fat. Are you doing that for any reason? Do you have a competition coming up? Or are you doing that simply because you want to? The thing to note is, regardless of what those reasons are, especially the latter, when you could potentially be even more flexible, you can certainly enjoy the foods you want to enjoy. There's this idea that people have kind of like labeled things as like clean foods, dirty foods, good and bad foods, when in reality that's wildly untrue and that's wildly problematic, because that then in turn gives these foods a value of what is good and what is bad. But how do you define what is good and bad? Do you define something as good because it's high protein? But what if it's really high fat, really low micronutrients? Okay, well then maybe something's good if it's high micronutrients, but what if it's got no protein and your goal is building muscle? Do you see what I mean? Good and bad is very much subjective, and I don't think it's an appropriate terminology for food, when in reality your body is not going to process the fact that you've eaten ice cream. Your body is going to process that you've eaten a certain number of carbs, fats and proteins from a certain source, potentially a dairy source. If you're lactose intolerant, that may cause some problems. It does not suddenly know that you have put this together in a frozen treat and it's just suddenly ice cream. It doesn't know that. It does not suddenly consume it and say, actually, hang on a second, you've just consumed something bad, therefore I'm going to punish you for that. The other thing to note is everyone has this idea of like, oh, I've got to eat low carb and high fat and low fat, high carbs, whatever it may be, when in reality, when it came to maintaining muscle when in a deficit period, provided protein was the same, whether you consume the rest of your foods from carbs or fats didn't actually make a difference regarding muscle maintained. If you go into the world with this idea of that you can't enjoy the things you enjoy even in a deficit period, or just even when you're just living your life, then that sounds like a pretty limiting and restrictive way to live your life, doesn't it? And what happens when we restrict ourselves too aggressively? We often result to binging. We then say, actually, I'm not going to eat anything I enjoy for the next 6 weeks. You get 3 or 4 weeks into that and suddenly you just excessively eat the things you enjoy because you're depriving yourself of something you really want. I think the key is removing these labels from these foods and realizing that you can enjoy things regardless of what you're trying to achieve. And as soon as you kind of take away enjoyment, you're essentially depriving yourself of an element of happiness. Very quickly, just got to let you know that down below, links in the description and the comment section, the TFNL upper workout guide and glute workout guide have both just gone live. These are both 60-page booklets, essentially teaching you how to get the most out of your upper body training and most out of your glute training, depending on which one aligns with your goals best. Both of which will include a 15-week workout following the principles that we've spoken about throughout the workout guide, to then show you how to apply what the guides have taught you. There is currently a big juicy sale on, so you can get them for a nice discounted price alongside all of the other guides if anything tickles your pickle.
With social media, we don't always get to see the full picture. Normal, healthy, beautiful bodies look like so many different bodies. A healthy diet can look so different than that 20-second when I eat a day TikTok.
Yeah, I think that's another good point. I mentioned this quite a lot, is that social media is essentially a highlight reel. You will see the best of whatever people are usually showing you. You take 10 photos, you're going to upload one, you're probably going to upload the best one. Although that's not realistic, I do understand it. I do it myself when I film multiple sets of my workout and maybe upload them to Instagram or maybe a picture. I'll choose the one that I deem to be the best, not the one I deem to be the worst. But it's key to note that essentially living your life in which you are comparing yourself to people, comparing yourself to how someone eats, comparing yourself to how someone trains, comparing yourself to how someone looks, is going to do nothing for you apart from leaving you feeling pretty inadequate and essentially just devaluing yourself and your current progress. And then you go into the topic of health and what's healthy. It's an interesting one. I think health really depends. I think you can be healthy in many different shapes and sizes. You may look at me and you may think I'm very healthy, but then actually you look at my blood tests, maybe they're actually not very healthy at all. You look at someone who you may externally perceive as unhealthy, but their blood test may be far superior to mine, indicating that they may actually be in fact healthier than I am. So again, you can't really assess health from an external perspective in all cases. You can maybe get an understanding to some extent, maybe, but again, by no means always. I think the key to a note is that whatever you're doing, you must make sure you are doing for yourself. If you're doing something because you want to look like someone else, how far is that going to take you? Especially when you realize that you're never going to achieve the goal that you've set out to achieve. You will never achieve the physique of Linda. You'll never achieve the physique of whoever it may be, because again, only they have that physique, as I mentioned in my previous Abby Sharp video. If you're working towards a goal that's going to result in failure, how successful do you think that's going to be? But if you could set a bit more of a self-driven goal, I want to work out so I can lift this much. I want to work out so I can feel better about myself and whatever means. I think those are far more realistic than saying I want to work out to look like this person, or I want to work out to lift as much as this person. Because again, that is directly feeding comparison, which is never going to be healthy.
Social media is a little weird and kind of mean and toxic too sometimes. She makes me feel insecure, unproductive, like I'm always behind or eating too much. She brings out the worst in me, but she is staying around whether we like it or not. And instead of seeing that as a bad thing, I've started seeing that as motivation to work on myself, to become so grounded and content and happy as myself so that she can't hurt me, to accept my insecurities.
Again, this is an interesting one because again, I'm never here to throw shade on anyone. I'm never here to badmouth anyone. That's certainly not my job and what I intend to do with my channel. Essentially what I'm trying to do is have conversations that people may not want to have, but conversations I maybe perhaps deemed to be necessary, be that critique of a workout or perhaps my thoughts on mental health and the world around us. And I think ultimately Linda's a tricky one here because obviously she's stating about social media can't hurt her, praise on insecurities, which is something I actually often do say, but she's trying to make herself grounded so she doesn't feel XYZ. Ultimately, Linda wouldn't really be Linda without social media. I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be where I am without social media. So it's all well and good demonizing social media to an extent, saying it's XYZ, but that XYZ has also given people like myself and Linda a platform to speak about what we want to speak about to potentially thousands of people. So in that sense, it's fantastic. When it comes to the comparison and the toxicity on social media, that certainly is an issue. And again, that is something you can never hide from. It's just essentially accepting it's part of the job. I find it interesting how Linda does often speak about this. I've mentioned this before, about how she wants to become grounded so she can't feel insecure. But unfortunately, I can probably guarantee in the next few videos, there will be a video of Linda basically expressing concern about body image, expressing concern about relationship with food, or expressing concern about something that has made her feel bad, potentially on social media, thus directly potentially contradicting this message. So although the message is a really good one and I really do respect it, to me, because I've seen a lot of Linda's content, the message is somewhat devalued, knowing that she has done and may in fact potentially in the future contradict the message she is actually now promoting.
TikToks that promote unrealistic, restrictive, and inaccurate diet advice are not worth it, but fun food recipe TikToks, body positivity TikToks, and doing your own research before trusting the information you get from TikTok is worth it.
I think ultimately, if you find a recipe on TikTok that you think looks quite nice, I'd say just go for it and try it. Essentially, if a TikTok or anything is ever promoting like a diet trend or a fad, most trends or fads, especially within the fitness industry, are that for a reason. They are trends and fads to get immediate or very quick popularity before they fizzle out, after potentially damaging a lot of people in the process. You have all these popular diet fads and workout fads, when in reality, whether it's a fad or not, doesn't change the fundamental principles of what is needed to lose weight, gain weight, get healthier, get fitter. In which case, that is very much if you want to lose weight, move more, eat less. Expend more calories than you are consuming. If you want to gain weight, consume more calories than you are expending. If you want to build muscle, probably worth considering resistance training and increasing your protein intake. Nothing crazy out there is going to change anything. There is going to be no recipe to have like accelerated fat loss. There's going to be no recipe to accelerated muscle gain. You can just lift and eat according to your goals, provided that's something you want to achieve. But if you don't want to achieve those things and you don't want to consider tracking food and you don't want to consider going to the gym or working out at home, whatever it may be, then you don't have to. Again, it's very much identifying what do you want to achieve? Okay, you want to just be happier. Okay, what would make you happier? Is there something you would do in life that could make you happy? Is there something would work out make you happy? Would changing your diet make you happier? Yes or no? If it's a no, bin it off. If it's a yes, put it in the consideration pile. Do you want to lose weight? Okay, calorie deficit. You don't want to track food? Okay, what about if you use your hand for portions instead? Or you don't want to do that? Okay, what about if you just kind of eyeball things? Just eat how you want to eat, and if you feel like it's not working, maybe just try and eat a little bit less. There are so many ways to approach things. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. complicated. When the reality is, if TikTok is promoting something, it's probably going to be a bit of nonsense. And I think people have to be very careful what they consume, especially on short form content applications like TikTok, because people will essentially bang out as many videos as they can that they think are going to boom for views and get millions of views very quickly, which may potentially lead to them selling a product or getting a mass following. I guess you can argue to an extent I do a similar thing with clickbaiting. With Linda, for example, I'm using Linda as a catalyst for conversation, because if I didn't use Linda for a catalyst for conversation, I can assure you that the message I'm trying to promote, which I'm hoping will help some people, would reach a lot less people, thus helping a lot less people. Therefore, it's important for me to use creators as catalysts for conversations, as they're the ones who triggered these thought processes in myself, and also they allow me to reach a wider audience, and maybe even potentially some of their audience, in which my message might help them if they are struggling, which is kind of what I want to achieve here.
Letting diet culture and social media decide how you feel about your body and your food choices is not worth it. But learning about nutrition, learning about all the things your body does for you to keep you alive, and unlearning that your body is the problem, that's worth it.
I actually do think that's a really good message, is that essentially whatever you do online, whether it's a diet, whether it's a workout, someone will always have a problem with it. Therefore, social media in some capacity will always tell you it's wrong. You really have to identify, probably the hardest thing to identify is what's truly going to make you happy. How do you need to eat to be happy? How do you need to train if that's something you want to do to be happy? How do you need to live to be happy? Again, if it was as simple as knowing that answer, we'd all know immediately. We don't. We can shortlist things, trial and error, try different things, whatever it may be. But first, identify where you want to go, what you want to achieve. So identify your goal, that's your destination. The next thing is like, how do we get there? There are 1,000 different routes. Let's try each of them, bin off the ones that don't work, short to list the ones that do work until we find the best route for us. It takes time, but the thing that I found helped me a lot was consuming a lot less content from content creators that made me feel bad. So I unfollowed a lot of the influencers that were kind of promoting these negative thoughts in my head, whether they mean to or not, the ones that were making me think, oh, I'm not doing enough, I need to do this, whatever it may be. I started following the ones that I could learn something from, or the ones that made me want to do better. I think a really good starting point is identifying who you're following and are they helping you or are they hindering you? If they're helping you, fantastic, I encourage it. Do they teach you something? Do they make you feel good? Do they make you feel positive? Probably worth following. Are they hindering you? Do they make you feel negative? Do they make you feel insecure? Do they make you feel like you're not enough or not doing enough? Probably worth binning them off. Again, I think Linda's overall message can be really good, but the one thing I've always kind of said with Linda, the one gripe I've always had, having seen a lot of her content and not really having much of a bias either way to her, I really struggle to believe that she stays true to a lot of the things she says, considering how so many of her messages contradict one another. And I find that particularly difficult because, again, the message itself can be really good, but having seen her contradict herself multiple times in the past, that then devalues the message, where I'm kind of thinking to myself, you're telling me to do this, which is great. I can see that I don't know if you do it yourself, which kind of makes me feel a bit uncertain about whether I can believe it or not. And maybe that's a me problem. I'm not trying to disrespect Linda in any capacity, absolutely not. It's just how my brain is working and where it's going. Identify where you want to go, identify what makes you happy, and then you can start piecing those pieces of the puzzle together and figure out how to get to the destination you want to get to in the happiest and most sustainable means possible. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my endless rambling and waffling, and thank you for tolerating the video.